We are back. Uh, as always, I'm excited to see you guys. Or hear from you guys um, via comments, private messages. I know it's reaching a bunch of ears because it comes back to me, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the encouragement. I appreciate the reception of it, and I appreciate the appreciation of it in general. So thank you. Um, this is going to be interesting. I'm trying to record a little quicker. I have a lot of things planned for the weekend. It's going to be a busy weekend for me, so I want to make sure I get this out so we can get back to life. I don't want to take you too much or take you away from life too much, um, but I do understand how important this is for myself and possibly you as well. So, with that said, we're gonna start this off how we always started off with a exercise in mindfulness. Starting now. We are here. I have your puzzle for you. This is an interesting one. It says here, "Until I am measured, I am not known. Yet you miss me when I have flown. What am I? Until I am measured, I am not known. Yet you miss me when I have flown. What am I?" As you think about that, I want to get into the conversation. Just to kind of level set where I'm at right now. We're 2 weeks into the semester. We're and The students are excited. They're putting together their projects, what they're trying to design, and their creativity is overflowing. We spend time doing workshops, and this always helps me in my professional outside of the classroom. Obviously, I run a couple of business. One in particular, I'm excited about because um, we're getting closer to a possible integration and big announcement, a partnership announcement. One that I've been thinking about. It's been obviously I've been aware of it because I'm deeply involved, but it's basically been a secret to everybody else. But I'm excited to be able to announce that to the world and then kind of see how it is received by everybody else. So I'm looking forward to that. But um, I want to talk creativity today, which is interesting. So uh, I've said this before. Um, I'm a fan, a huge fan of Jay Z, um, and there's context to that. So if you don't know, which you should know, I was born and raised in Belize. I didn't come to America until I was a man, and I picked up my American English accent from listening to Jay Z. So a lot of people tell me, well, for some reason, you remind me of Jay Z or you sound like Jay Z. And it's not intentional, but it's because of the amount of Jay Z I listened to growing up. And one of my favorite Jay Z albums is a Black album, and he released a documentary called Fade to Black, and it's worth the watch. It's an interesting. It shows insights into his creative process. But one of the things he said in a clip of that stuck to me, and this has been out maybe 10, 15 years, or maybe longer. But one of the things that he said in that clip was it was talking specifically about luck and people saying he was lucky. And he said a wise man once told him that luck isn't some mystical energy that dances around the universe, bestowing people with happiness and joy. That he makes his own luck. Powerful statement. I want to adopt that and create a variation of it, and I want to say that creativity isn't some mystical energy that dances around the universe, bestowing people with the ability to create. I think we can. Its creativity is innate to us as human beings, and we can channel it and bring it about depending on how connected we are to it. Um, but I do want to, in this particular moment, um, speak to how our body's rhythm and the energy that flows through it impacts our ability to create. And I want to talk specifically, when I talk body's rhythm, I want to talk about the circadian rhythm, and that is the natural 24-hour cycle of our bodies, that controls the changes in our mental changes, our psychological changes, our physical changes, as well as our behavioral changes throughout that 24-hour period. Um, and this is kind of what controls our sleep cycle, when our energy is at its most heightened, and when it's at its lowest, right? And I remember on this particular platform, I had mentioned that a long time ago, when I was a child, my mother used to tell me that knowledge comes in the morning. And that later grew to me coming to the realization that my creativity is at its most optimal in the morning time, because my body is at peace, and I can allow it to do what comes to it naturally, which is to create. Um, so for a lot of so I can argue that I'm a morning person. I can argue that um, I can get up early, and I can be functional in wee hours of the morning. Not a lot of people are like that. Some people are night owls, right? Or they come alive in the nighttime, and that's interesting based on their circadian cycle, um, or circadian rhythm. They are at their peak and their optimal performance at night, and that's what makes us kind of unique as individuals, kind of finding where our peaks and valleys are, especially throughout a 24-hour cycle. And then there is this thing that happens, and some of us experience it. Um, uh, it might seem coincidental, or it's hard to kind of pinpoint how and why it happens, and when it happens, and the reason it's happening. But it's interesting because if you're able to time it properly, you're able to one, match your energy's peak, your body's rhythmic peak, with in alignment with what's happening in the universe around you. And when this happens, you hit what in any kind of creative exercise flow state, where everything seems to happen in your favor, where time slows down, and you feel like you're in so much control, a level of clarity, clairvoyance, that to the point where it almost feels like everything that's happening is at your control. I obviously cannot control what's happening outside, but that's the beauty of living in a big city. It's like you get the hustle and bustle of daily life, which I am not complaining about, and I do appreciate. So, but it's not good for recording purposes. But anyways, you hit what is known as a flow state, and in that flow state, you are in full control, and time slows down. It almost slows down to a point where it feels like it's a standstill. And I had said one time, when I needed inspiration, I would find people that I think are known, legends in their respective arts. And I see sport as an art, so there's a video of there's another documentary. Speaking of documentaries, Michael Jordan, who I'm a huge fan of. And I grew up watching him play, and he was one of the reasons I fell in love with the game of basketball. He had a documentary, and it was called Come Fly With Me. And I used to watch his documentary every time before I went out to play a basketball game. inspired me and motivated me, and I was amped up for the game. And I go back to that documentary and clips of it, even now as an adult. If I'm going into spaces where I know I have to show out, I have to be creative, I'll find snippets of this documentary. But in that documentary, he spoke about a moment where in the middle of the game, where he is in full control, and it's this zen-like experience. It's almost out of body, because he sees himself in slow motion, and everybody else is at a standstill, and he's able to kind of do whatever he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. There's a game, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a basketball game, and this is the moment when they'll say he's on fire. But he hits that flow state, and he speaks to it, and that is because if he were to spend time analyzing where his body is in its circadian rhythm, understand that everything that's happening around him, and how in this particular moment everything aligns, then he hits this what's we're talking about now, which is a flow state. I also see it, another athlete that I'm a fan of, that I see arts in sports as well, is Floyd Mayweather Jr. And there's clips of people who are boxers who have been in the ring with him, and even him speaking about being inside that square, and hitting a stride where you feel like you're in full control of everything that's happening. And they talk about how everything just slows down, and he can see the punches coming at him in slow motion. He can see every breath of his opponent, and again, he feels as if though nothing moves unless he moves it. Nothing happens unless he is the one initiating it. And this is the creative flow state that I think us as creative, we strive for on a constant basis. And it might seem erratic if you've never sat down to analyze how your body functions, the biology of who you are, and then where you are at your peak throughout your 24-hour cycle. It might just seem, again, like it's just this random burst of creativity. But I'm here to tell you it's not random. I'm here to tell you that we have a deeper connection ourselves, our bodies, and the universe, and every living, every organism that exists in it. And I think we communicate in a way that it might not be, it's not something you hear, but something you feel. And I don't believe in anything being a coincidence. I don't believe that anything randomly happens. I think it is all interconnected. And when we're able to understand how our bodies cycle, and when and in which moments certain things happen, and we're able to align that with everything else around us, I think we're able to achieve that flow state. But it requires a much deeper level of understanding of ourselves from a psychological standpoint, from a physiological standpoint, right? How our bodies physically feel and interact, and also just from a behavior standpoint, right? It's like, how do we create spaces where our bodies are at its peak performance? And there's tons of science to this, but there's also spirituality, right? There's an understanding of the energy, and a relationship that goes deeper than the physical. And that's a conversation that it could go on forever. And I think it is one that it might not necessarily fit within the boundaries of what we've set for this particular podcast, but that is something to explore. I think our bodies know when we are gearing up to be creative, and sometimes it's an unconscious thing, and it's on us to kind of. I always tell people, especially when they're not feeling well from a health perspective, one of the things I always say, it's you're the only one that knows your body, or you know your body best. And that the same goes for creativity, right? You know your sleep cycle, your sleep patterns, behaviorally, you know the things that trigger you, how you react to certain things. And then mentally, you know when you're in a good mental space. You know when you're in a space where you can, one, take on challenges and problems, embrace criticism, and you know exactly how your body reacts to those things, right? From a physical standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, and just from a behavioral standpoint. So, and all those things are controlled by the rhythms of your body. And I want you to completely understand it. And because of that, creativity, it's on you to identify when all those things are happening. And it might not happen at the exact same time every single day, but you are conscious of when you are gearing up or getting close to a flow state. And if you're able to kind of pinpoint that moment when your body in its holistically is telling you, hey, you're about to hit a creative state, and you're about to get into that flow state. I think those are the opportunities we should use as creatives to take advantage of. And again, this is a timing thing, right? And you have to trust the process, and you have to trust the timing. And you're not going to be able to always clock it right. But if you're able to at least put some measurement and some analysis around it, to know that when you're within the vicinity of that flow state, because of how your body is moving rhythmically, and understanding the circadian rhythm, and how it impacts your ability to create, I think it can lead to one, an epiphany, a recognition and realization of how these energy and this rhythmic match of yourself as an individual being, and the universe in its entirety, right? Everything that is happening around you. And I want us to kind of spend time doing our own understanding of our bodies, understanding of how our rhythmic flow impacts our creativity. And before you go and try to pinpoint the exact time when it's your body is the most receptive to creativity, or you're close to that flow state, sometimes it's always good to do analysis at each point, right? If you want to find it, it's how are you creatively in the morning time? How are you creatively in the afternoon? How does, and similarly at nighttime, how does light and the change in weather and temperature impact your body, and how does that impact your creativity? And I think sometimes what's the word I'm looking for? I think sometimes we don't understand the severity or the influence that those particular components and factors have on our ability to create. And I think and now is a good time, since it's a part of the conversation. It's something that we are bringing to conscious thought. I want you to spend time kind of thinking about it, right? Seeing how your sleep patterns, how that impacts your ability to create. And I know for me, and I've said this before, I think on this platform, and we're actually coming into fall now. I usually have a stint of insomnia, and it usually happens late August, early September, where I have difficulties falling asleep. And for some reason, every year it happens around this time. And we're in that space now. And knock wood, it hasn't happened yet. And I don't want to put that in the universe, but I think, and I understand in those moments how that impacts my creativity. If I can think back, where was I from a creative standpoint? The fall of the years that pass, because of how the insomnia and how my body's reacting to whatever's happening. It could be the change in weather, and that affects my circadian rhythm. But now that I'm conscious of it, be on another level, I think it's on me to kind of go back and make a correlation, and I will come back with my findings. But that's what I wanted to talk about today: how the rhythmic movements of our body, the changes that happens, and it's not this singular thing. It's not just physical; it's also mental and behavioral, right? And again, there's some spiritual component here that we should all take into consideration. And once we find, once we get a deeper understanding of our body and the cycles that it goes through on a daily basis, and we're able to kind of pinpoint where our peak or optimal time is throughout the day to be creative. I think as creative, we can achieve the thing that we've ultimately want to achieve in the act of creativity, which is the flow state, where everything just feels like it's at a standstill, and you are almost it feels as if though you're in full control of everything, and everything is colorful, everything is feels right, and everything is just coming together exactly how you envisioned it, and it's happening. It's slow motion, and you get to appreciate it as it happened, and it is a conscious experience. It is a mindful experience, and I hope that we all, if we haven't experienced it yet, get to experience it at some point, because it's a beautiful feeling. All right. With that said, I don't want to prolong this, as I always say at the end. But I do want to say, we'll go back to how we started, which is the riddle. Until I am measured, I am not known. Yet you miss me when I have flown. What am I? I am time. As always, it is a pleasure. And until we see each other again, be great.